Well, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bigfoot Zone ECBRO. Uh, yeah, so there's a couple new things going on tonight. One mainly is that we're actually streaming both on Facebook and YouTube. Normally we just do YouTube, but I said, what the heck, let's do a double one tonight. I don't know how many viewers we may have on Facebook, but keep in mind, I'll be paying attention to the chat the best I can. So if I miss you, please forgive me. I'm going to try to keep close attention to that. If you have any questions for our guest, which we have a very special guest with us tonight, Mr. Robert, you got to correct me if I'm wrong. Solomon?
Yes, sir.
Is that okay?
Yep.
I just want to make sure. Sometimes I always get somebody's name.
I know you're good.
Like
just like the biblical figure himself, King Solomon.
There you go. Excellent. That's awesome. So for those who are just jumping in, and I'll remind you throughout the podcast, for those who like to leave comments, you guys know where the chat is on the comments. I want to encourage you to feel free to participate and hit that super chat right there where you have to enter in your comment. Just look to the right. You'll see the super chat symbol there. Feel free to take advantage of that. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and get right into this. First of all, thank you, Robert, for agreeing to do this tonight. Because normally we go live on Friday nights, which actually this worked out great because I kind of have a busy weekend coming up, and tomorrow I will not be around because we got plans tomorrow.
Nice.
So yeah, here we are Thursday night, and we may have a little bit different audience tonight versus what we normally do. So that's going to be cool. I may be switching this up because I got, besides your podcast that I'm going to be a guest on, what is it?
Yes,
is it
sir.
Next weekend?
Next week.
Yeah, next week. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I got a list of two others that jumped up here recently. So I've usually it's been a while since I've done like podcasts like back to back from each week. So I have to actually write them down because I end up forgetting stuff half the time.
Right.
So
yeah, I know the feeling.
So yeah. Now, Robert, you are a Pennsylvania resident yourself, aren't you?
No, I'm an Ohio resident. I live in Ohio.
Oh, you're in Ohio.
Yes,
okay.
In Ohio. Yes, sir.
All right, very cool. So I don't know what led me to believe. I guess it's because that's where I first met you was at the Fayette County event at the Morrell. No, was it? Yeah, Morrell Fire Department.
Was it? Department. Yep. Sure was.
Yep. Very awesome.
Yep.
So now, as far as we're going to be talking about giants tonight, but
yes, sir.
Let me ask you if you want to kind of give us a fill-in on backstory on what led you to start researching and looking into giants. Was it Bigfoot itself, or you can feel free to take us away on that?
So I've always been in the church. I went to church when I was a child. My mom and dad, we would go every Sunday, like clockwork. We'd go meet my grandpa, my grandma, and we'd meet them up at church, and we would go every Sunday. We went every Sunday I was probably about 17 when we stopped going. And, I'd never paid attention much to the sermons. I was a kid, so like that was the last thing in my mind. So I would read the Old Testament. I would sit and read the Old Testament while they were preaching and doing the hymns and everything else. And I started reading about Goliath because that's a very popular story in the Bible itself, David and Goliath. David kills this giant named Goliath, a giant Philistine man who was about 13 feet tall. And I was fascinated. And I started reading more and more about giants in the Bible themselves, the Rephaim, King Og, The book of Joshua talks about them, and I got to reading about the Nephilim and things of that nature. And what I noticed was that there were these Nephilim in the Bible, and they towered above man, so to speak. And so I started doing independent research as I got older and started looking at other books like the Book of the Giants, which is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the one that everybody knows, the Book of Enoch, where you learn a little bit more about the Nephilim. And then from there, I started reading about giants in other religions, giants in Islam. Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve in Islam were like 60 to 90 feet tall. And then I just started reading other religions and other texts. And then I started getting into the Native American folklore of giants and how the Native Americans would fight Redbeards. There were red-bearded giants, and how the red-bearded giants would fight the black-bearded giants. And it was a continuous process on down the line. And ever since then, I've just been very fascinated. And then I started getting into how the Smithsonian would come and they would dig up bones, and the Smithsonian would come on in, and then they would just take the bones, and nobody ever knows what happened to them. So, and it's just been kind of an ebb and flow for me. Like I'll obviously I venture into other topics, other subjects, but I'm always led back into giants because I find them fascinating. I find the old world, and I say the old world because the old world to me is pre-industrialization. Because if we noticed after the industrialization of the world, factories and things like that, a lot of your folklore kind of gets pushed off into the forests and things like that. Before industrialization, there were fae folk, there were talks of Bigfoot, there were talks of all of these cryptids and creatures that roam the lands, but then all of a sudden you have these big factories that are billowing out all of this pollution and things like that. And what I believe is it kind of pushed those back. And as for giants, when we read the Bible, but then we also start taking into account Native American myths about flood, because every culture has a flood myth, from Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Native American folklore. Everybody has a flood myth. And a lot of people say that the giants disappeared after the flood. But if we read into the Old Testament to Joshua, we get King Og, who was also a giant. So what I think is these giants still roam the land. They might still roam the land to this day. But I think that if they did, we would see them. And giant men today have problems with, it's their pituitary gland has an issue. So they have issues. They can't really walk. We see guys like Andre the Giant, who was a professional wrestler in the WWF at a time. And he was able to control himself. But as he got older, his weight, it takes a toll on your body. Gravity starts taking its toll. So I think at one point you had these giants that were very athletic. But not to go too far off track here, I have been studying giants for a very long time, and I wanted to present on something that isn't well known, isn't very big yet, and I thought to myself, I said, well, a lot of guys like yourself do Bigfoot. A lot of folks do the spirit world, ghosts, hauntings, things like that. So I said, what can I do to stand apart? And I said, giants. I'm fascinated by it. I like to read articles. I've been sent articles. So yeah, it just fascinates me to no end.
Right. Before I throw in the
chat, by the way, hello everyone in the chat.
Oh yeah, we got a healthy little audience going on right now. Before I throw out any more of my questions, there is a question right here on the chat. Deadpool Head 888 says, "How tall does one have to be in order to be considered a giant?"
It's tough because we have guys like Shaquille O'Neal who are like 7 feet tall. So you got that, But I think to be a giant, you got to probably stand about 13 feet. I would say relatively high, but I think that's sort of like a very I think it's very subjective, because what we consider a giant, some people off at another land might not. I think height is your your indicator. If you have a population that's shorter, people that are like 6 feet, 7 feet, they're going to be considered giants to them. But we see 6 foot. A buddy of mine's 6'2". So I see him. I'm like, oh, it's a regular thing. But if I saw a guy that was 13 feet, 14 feet, heading upwards, that's a giant to me. So in my personal opinion, it's going to be somebody that sits at least 13 feet tall. Something you wouldn't see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, I'm 6 foot myself. I'm right at 6 foot.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, if I'm looking to double someone double my size, man, yeah,
Right.
that's huge. So
Right. Like, wait a minute,
yeah,
where did you come from? Yes, exactly. Exactly.
absolutely.
Hello,
One
Leslie.
of the things you mentioned about the Smithsonian, how at
Hello,
the
Leo.
Smithsonian they find and collect remains
Mhm.
and stuff,
Yep.
and yeah, I've heard this before, and
Mhm.
I've probably read about it and I've heard about it, but yeah, and you mentioned it yourself that they
Yes.
take and do away with the remains. Why
Mhm.
do you think that is?
So I believe it's for a couple reasons. What I think is some of it could be the fact that if they find these giant bones and the public gets wind of it, right? I think it proves a lot of things that disproves what we would say is modern science. I think it puts a
Right.
lot of modern science, and it would 100% change our entire historical ideology. It would change history books. It would maybe
Mhm.
shed some light that the Bible was real, that parts of the Bible were real. And I'm not going to get into a big like diatribe about religion because that's not what this is about. But I think it proves that. It proves other religions are real. I think it also proves that the government's been lying to us. Now, that is
Right.
something that, nobody should be surprised at this point in time, given, everything that's happened with our world in the past, 100, 200 years. But I think it 100% sheds light on that, much like the UFO papers that came out about 2 years ago, which really didn't show anything. But what I think, like I said, I think it 100% just disproves a lot of things that modern academia, modern science would say, oh, now we have to go back. We have to recant a lot of things we've said. And I just think it disrupts the natural order. And anything that disrupts the natural order is looked at as being a problem. Now, I think in this day and age, it would be easier to say they're hoaxes because of everything that we have.
Oh, right.
Information is at the touch of a hand now. It's not, you don't have to sift through, piles of books to find one sentence, which I have done through research. I've sat through, library books and just kept going. But
Right.
I think with everything today, and it's easy just to do that. So
Right. So I'm gonna just pop a couple things here.
hey,
Like
he's not wrong.
Deadpool, yeah, he said I've also heard that
Sure.
oxygen levels factor into the size of creatures, and I always found that
Yes, sir.
very interesting. Like in pop culture with sky, what's it? He says sky islands and giant bugs.
I
So
don't know if you ever heard this, but there was a theory that was put forth some years ago. It was the Adam and Eve theory, and it says that when the Garden of Eden was cut off from Adam and Eve, a giant cataclysm happens, and it flips the poles. So it flips the northern and southern poles. And somebody likened it to the Hopi legend of how the earth was getting destroyed and mankind went underground. And so these ant-like creatures taught man how to survive, and then they brought them back out again. But the theory that I'm talking about, I'll have to send you a couple links to that. But it just basically says that the
yeah,
poles were shifted, and that's why you had the continents split, because if you put the continents together, it's almost like a giant puzzle piece. You have Pangea and all these continents fit together. And with that being said, who knows if there was a different oxygen quality at the time, if there were, people have postulated that there could have been giant mushrooms and these giant trees that provided different levels of oxygen for whatever was roaming at the time.
right. Kind of reminds me or makes me think of what is the I can't remember that movie. There's been a few different remakes. There's even been a kind of a comedy version with Will Ferrell in it. If you know what I'm talking about. I can't think of it right now. It'll probably come back to me
Is
after
it
a
Journey
while.
to the Center of the Earth?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, where they come into a new world, everything's plantation and everything's much larger, the plants and all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
because we don't know what the Earth was like before a certain point. We know that the Earth did this, and that. However, we don't know. We don't know what advanced
right.
civilizations, and we keep digging and we keep finding things that were underneath of older civilizations. And I think that is key. And I also think that a lot of governments too are hush on that. You can't go to Egypt and just dig all willy nilly. You can get fined, arrested, thrown in jail. There was a guy that climbed to the top of the Great Pyramid, and he was arrested and thrown in jail for it. So
Right.
I think a lot of things are sort of hushed because of that reason. Like, it's just they don't want widespread panic.
Right. Okay. Now, this is something I'm not familiar with. I don't know if you are. Asking about the cube law. He said, "How do giants bypass the cube law?"
So cube law
Goes
says the
on.
relationship between a centrifugal pump or fan speed and its energy need. I am not real familiar with Cube's law myself. I would love to get an idea of what that is. So if you can provide that, South Dakota, I would 100% be intrigued as to give an opinion. As it stands, I don't have an opinion because I don't know what Cube's law is. Pardon my lack of knowledge on that.
Right. Oh, okay. Somebody made a joke over here. He said Mario would have had a blast with those giant mushrooms.
You'd still have to
Yeah,
fight
that's
the
fair.
Koopa clan. That seems to be the overwhelming force to Mario. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Um, Now, I've seen. I know you talking about a lot of things can be hoax and everything. Which, yeah, there's all kinds of hoaxing and stuff going on to this
Mhm.
very day. Um, Now, I have seen some video footage, and some of it looks old, but not old. But then some of it's supposedly modern. It's not the clearest stuff out there. Um,
Right.
there was one with giants being, it had different video clips. I actually shared it on this channel here.
Mhm.
And it's regarding giants being spotted around the world. Um, do you believe that we still have giants existing today that may not be in the public's eye quite so much?
So I think, I mean, I think if it would be in the United States, I think that maybe that would be a little harder to hide, given
Hmm.
aerial footage, drones, and things like that. But I think if you go to places like China, the Amazon, or if you go to places like Afghanistan or any mountainous region, I believe it's possible because we don't have cameras everywhere. We don't have drones everywhere. You can't get satellite footage everywhere. And we don't account for and I've heard this in the Bigfoot community too about how Bigfoot can move underground. They might
Hmm.
go underground to do this, that, and the third. I'm not very well versed on Bigfoot. So if I'm wrong, please by all means correct me. But giants could move in the same way. They move underground, they go underground, they come out when they need food and water, and then they go back down again. Also, I think the interesting aspect is communities of giants have still been sighted in places like the Himalayas. So,
Hmm.
you have these big places with, nothing but mountainous regions. Who knows what's up there or who knows what's in these deep, dark regions, forested regions, the Pacific Northwest, for example. I've never been. I definitely want to go at some point, but I heard if you get lost there, it's over for you. So you still have vast wilderness out there. I can't 100% say that giants don't exist in modern times. I can say I've never
Right.
seen one, but in terms of saying no, that's impossible. No, I can't say that. I can't at all.
Right. No, I agree. Because like just like with the Bigfoot theory, there's many theories of Bigfoot, but
Mhm.
one of the I guess you could say it's a famous one, but
Mhm.
I just haven't really heard it discussed recently. But Bigfoot living on the ground, why can't I mean if there's a lot that we don't know about out in these remote areas. We don't know how we underestimate. I feel like we underestimate the intelligence of a lot of things. Um, I think it's a logical explanation why a lot of things are not found, but um, there's a solid belief that people believe that Bigfoot does live on the ground, and
Mhm.
you know, I've seen video footage. Like I said, I don't know the reality behind it, but there's people that film different areas of the world where they believe there's a hidden doors in these rock ledges, mountains, and stuff that we have locations where supposedly giants are living. Like I said, I know it's back to what you said earlier. We don't know what the government knows and why, as far as
Right.
if they don't want to admit to certain things that they might know, because, like you said, it could prove that the Bible and other religions are real. And when you said that, I wanted to let you know I actually agree. That makes a lot of sense. I've
Mhm.
often thought of that myself, um, but yeah, I mean, as far as giants all around the world, and like you kind of already touched base on this, but well,
Mhm.
is it safe to say that almost every culture has giants in their history?
I would say yes for the most part. You even have giants in recent history. But like I said, those giants are it's when you get further down the line into our time period, the giants are more of a genetic anomaly, and they come with a lot of health problems. They can't walk as fast. They can't run. They have a lot of issues just moving. 9 feet tall, 9 foot tall men. You're going to have a lot of trouble moving and getting around. But then we go back and we read the old texts of different religions and different cultures and different Native American myths. And these things could run, throw spears. They could get to at the drop of a hat. So, like I said, I think that there's something to that. And I think that whatever genetic anomaly causes giants today, or what we would deem as giants, is more of, like I said, a genetic anomaly. But I think at one time you had whole species of giants. You couldn't, but once again, I think that could have been a sign of the times. Maybe other men were just as tall. But one thing I wanted to factor in earlier, and I wanted to touch base on this, we don't know if there's a interdimensional or supernatural aspect behind giants. So we don't know if they're even, on this plane of existence, if they can't go in and out of these dimensions. Now that gets into little deeper, far-fetched territory, but I think when we're talking about something that is not seen all the time, we have to sort of look at everything from every angle we possibly can, and then kind of start breaking things down in terms of, okay, what if these are beings and not necessarily just humans? What if they're otherworldly?
Right. And a lot of people actually honestly believe that. So that's a very good, strong possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, here's another one. He said, I heard the human jaws used to be much larger, and the average human had these larger jaws to accompany even more teeth due to high fibrous diets. How much do you think the food would contribute in?
I think, well, I mean, if we look at it today, you are what you eat, right? That's been a popular thing. So if you're putting junk in your body, you're going to feel like junk. You're going to, your short energy bursts, you're going to gain weight, the calories you put into your body. Do I think that could cause giantism or aspects of giants? I think it takes more than just food. I don't think it's just food alone. I think because, you could go on a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet or a carnivore diet, and you're still going to be the same height. Your weight will change, right? Your weight's going to change. But in terms of passing that trait down bloodline and then, all of a sudden growing, I think it takes a lot more things like atmospheric pressure, gravity, things of that nature to create a giant. I don't think that you can take a giant and just create one just by eating healthy. I don't think that's physically possible.
So would you say it's safer to say that most likely there's a genetic DNA mutation involved?
Yes. I think that these race of giants mated with, and in the book of Enoch, it talks of Semyaza and his troop of not angels, watchers, or messengers. That's what it translates as. Coming down, seeing that women were beautiful, and said, "Let's mate with them. We'll make a pact to do this." And so that in itself, if we go on a pure idea of the breeding ideology that they bred with human women, there would be Nephilim, these half messenger, half humans, and they were the giants. So I think that yes, there was some DNA aspect involved that was able to create these mythical beings. But that's the hard part, is pinpointing where in the DNA code that would actually lie, because you would probably have to be, and I'm sure there's people that still have in some form or fashion that trait. I wouldn't say everybody, but you have people like Shaquille O'Neal, who's I believe 7 foot something tall. I'm not sure specifics, but there might be something there. There might be something to it, because bloodlines are very serious. Your DNA. This is why whenever I talk of reincarnation, I don't necessarily believe it personally. What I believe is what's known as DNA imprinting, where you are made up of every ancestor that came before you. I was looking at my family tree the other day, and I am made up of all of these people who got together, then got together. Boom, here I am. And, you know, I liken it to a kid will say, hey, you know, I really like this snack. And the parents don't like it, but they'll say, oh, your grandfather, he loved those. That was his favorite snack. So it's like that was imprinted onto the grandchild. And things like the ball gene supposedly goes from the woman's side, and it's passed down to the child, or it skips a generation. So who's to say that the giant gene, as it were, isn't based on the same principle?
Right. Interesting. I've like popping up a couple things here.
Mhm.
Like
Please.
David mentioned, yeah, he said they remind him. Well, excuse me, Nephilim and mysterious beings are people in the Hebrew Bible who are described as being large and strong.
Mhm. Yep, men of
Uh,
renown.
de- right, exactly.
Mhm.
Nephilim almost remind me of demigods like Hercules or something.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I think of the
yes.
same thing sometimes. Yeah,
So do I. So do I. You know, and that's the thing, like Hercules or Perseus or these mythical men that could do all of this work. And if we take a second, excuse me, and we look at Genesis 1:26, where it talks about being made in the image of God, being made unto the likeness of God, right? Meaning that we are from God. So it's not too far to say that we have some similar characteristics. Not that we are gods per se, but that
yeah,
we carry some of those same characteristics. So
right.
yes, yes.
Now here's an interesting question for you.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on giants having originated by crossbreeding with certain aliens?
And thank you, Leah, for that question. I very much appreciate you. I believe that that's also possible because what we what a lot of people consider to be aliens, you know, they talk of grays, or they talk of the Nordics, or they talk of the reptilians, but that doesn't necessarily mean that aliens couldn't look just like us. They couldn't have
Right.
similar characteristics as us. In fact, one of the theories that I have, and this is just a theory, I play with it from time to time, is the idea that when Mars was destroyed, there were people once living on it, and the planet was getting ready to be destroyed. So they branched out, and some landed on Earth to kind of terraform it. Others went out into the universe. And I believe in aliens. I 100% believe that they're real. They could look like us. So I think that, yes, I think that it is very possible that giants or these Nephilim were able to breed with certain aliens, or even jinn, which a lot of people aren't real familiar with. But jinn come from the Quran, and they talk of jinn being also giant types of men and women. And the fact that jinn are supposedly just like us, except they live in another dimension. They were banished by Allah in the Quran for misbehaving, so that He can make way for human beings to come through. And so, who's to say that these giants didn't breed with those jinn, or whatever was here before mankind was here? There's
Right.
lots of talks in different religions and in different Mesoamerican belief systems that talk of the creation of a race. There was one that talks about mud people and wood people, and they couldn't do what needed to be done, so they were wiped clean, and then mankind was created. So we don't know what was here before us, and I think that's something we need to be looking more into, in my personal opinion.
Interesting. Even though there's a couple of people kind of, some of them are chatting back and forth, but
Mm-hmm.
as I'm listening to you,
Yes, sir.
because we're all talking about. I think everybody's into this because
I'm
we got a
glad.
good audience too.
I
So
love it. I love
yeah,
it. Thank you all for
um,
commenting. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. I don't know if this is anything you could relate to. This person's
Yeah.
replying or directing this to Deadpool, but before recorded history, 8,000 BC, there were all kinds of cultures that we will most likely never have any clue about. Would not doubt some cultures were into proto forms of eugenics, if I'm saying that correctly.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, well, like eugenics isn't something that was just taught yesterday. In fact, it's been, propagated that, you want to have the strongest and the most powerful of your race. You want to have the best of the best, so you weed out the weakness. And that's where a lot of people like Hitler come in, and other folks who didn't want the weakness. But before we had those, we definitely had that. We definitely had the idea of, and a prime example of this is the royal family throughout the years. The Plantagenet dynasty, for instance, was big on, you will have intercourse with your sister, or you have intercourse with your first cousin, because the bloodline was so strong at that point that anybody else that you bred with outside of that family was looked at as having a weak bloodline. Now, look what happened, though.
Okay. Yeah.
The mental degradation of a person who is bred too close to the bloodline. And for those of you that like dogs or know a little bit about dogs, some Dalmatians are bred too close to the bloodline, and that's what makes them kind of mean, because you're not right in the head. You've bred too close to the bloodline, and so they have these kids with their sister, and they're sharing the same basic genetics together in a form of a child, and that's why a lot of their kids died. There was some mental degradation there. There was some mental disabilities. There were crazy folks that were just insane, and they murdered each other for it. So another form of eugenics. So it's not too far off to say that. Now, I will say this. I believe that technology as we know it today didn't exist back then, but it existed in a separate way. It didn't exist the same as we think. You didn't just plug into an outlet, boom. Because you have things like the pyramids, you have these big stone monoliths that were built. How were they built? Now they've put forth many hypotheses about how they were built, but I think there's some interesting note that places like Pompoku that were just perfectly carved, perfectly. You can't even stick a credit card through the slots in the brick because it was carved perfectly. So yes, I think that technologically there might have been some different ways that eugenics was created. And if we look into things like the Odyssey, or we look at things like the Iliad, or some of your more older books written, and you start matching them to technology of today, right? You start saying, well, wait a minute, let me see here. This sounds a lot like a ray of some kind, or a way to petrify things. And so that's what I think. I think our technology today is different. I don't think we're more technologically advanced or less technologically advanced than the ancients. I just think they did things a lot different, and maybe a lot more nature oriented, where they were able to tap into the ley lines that exist on our planet. And if you look into ley lines, you'll see places like the Vatican, Washington, D.C., sit on this energy grid network that runs around the planet Earth. And I think there's a way to pull natural energy from the Earth, personally.
Right.
So, this isn't, obviously it's not the viewpoints of everybody, but that's what I think.
Absolutely. There's one statement up here. Well, there's a question involved too. This is interesting that you mentioned this, because it got me thinking, because a lot of people think Egypt and the pyramids and everything else has some kind of alien connection. But the question here is, Deadpool goes on to mention, I love thinking about the pyramids, and I've heard it would take multiple modern day cranes to lift a single brick of a pyramid. And I'm like, whoa, how did they do that back then? And I feel correct me if I'm wrong. Because my basic knowledge on, I like to believe that they had some form of modern engineering. They had, they're well equipped. They were good engineers on how to build and make their equipment. Yeah. But I don't know. Do you feel different? You'd be totally straight up on that if you think otherwise.
So I don't. Are you familiar with Edward Ledskalnin?
No, I'm not.
Have you ever heard of Coral Castle down in Florida?
Say the name again.
Coral Castle.
I'm sorry, I do not.
Oh, no. It's fine. No, it's fine. There was a gentleman, Edward Ledskalnin, who built a basic little town of coral. Now, coral is heavy. It's by no means light. And it was said that he took a box. It was a black box about that big, and he was able to move these giant coral blocks via and enjoy the journey, or that this is on point with this, using a basic level of frequency or magnets, putting two magnets between each other. The space involved here creates an almost like anti-gravity sort of field. And it was said that he could move these giant 2-ton coral blocks with just this box. A couple kids were helping him, and they happened to try to like peek in and sneak to see what he did. And they saw the box, and they saw him being able to take his finger and turn a block of coral with just his finger, levitating between these two magnets. So that to me shows that Enjoy the Journey said, frequencies, magnetics, two very interesting points. And to play off that frequency aspect, if you ever listen to music, and we all listen to music, certain types of music make you feel a certain type of way. Pitch, vocals, things like that. Like your intro, for instance, it got me hyped. Love that intro. That's a solid intro. I really enjoyed it. That was cool. I was like, oh yeah, we're about to get into it. Then you listen to something like classical music, and your mind is different. You know, it's more of a calm like nature. And so to me, I think frequency plays a very big part. Look at TV. They did a study on people watching television, and they noticed that the brain degradation happened at an alarming rate. They couldn't think for themselves because all they did was watch TV. So I think there is frequencies that has to be discussed when we're dealing with things like building, manipulating a population. So yes, I think frequencies play a big part.
Absolutely. Just like OCIR said, there has to be something to the frequency theories. The blocks at Baalbek.
Baalbek, Lebanon.
He said, I refuse to believe we're moved manually.
The Temple of Baalbek is a very interesting structure. It's in Lebanon. It's a very fascinating. Supposedly, that's where the devil is trapped. There's a big, giant stone block over this hole, and supposedly, like, if that's open, the devil will come out. But yeah, Baalbek is a very interesting place. There was a lot of sacrifices, a lot of human sacrifices, a lot of dark energy supposedly lays there. So that's cool that he brought up Baalbek, because I don't know a lot of folks that really talk about Baalbek. We've talked about it on our show before. So,
well, between you and the audience and the live chat, I'm actually kind of learning a few things. A lot of this is new to me, and I'm glad I have you on here. This is I know, like I said, this is intriguing a lot of people here. So,
oh, it's an honor, and once again, I appreciate the invite. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, and South Dakota brings up a point here. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
He says that there were still mastodons around when the pyramid was being constructed. Could they possibly use domesticated mastodons to help? It's possible, because the pyramids, I believe, when Cleopatra took her leadership role, that the pyramids had already been 2,000 years old. 2,000 years old. So, you know, at one time the pyramids were basically, they were white. They were like a white with a gold capstone, the gold capstone. Now, for those of you that know about gold, a lot of your superconductors, capacitors, things like that are made with gold, because it's a good conductor of electricity. So the way the pyramids were built, there was the gold capstones, and then granite, and then water ran underneath. All three of those are good conductors of electricity: gold, granite, and water. For what, though? What was the point in having conductors of electricity unless you're looking at a very sophisticated power plant? And that fits along with the whole ley line aspect of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Sits on one of the central points of a ley line, and if you could broadcast energy via these pyramids, Tesla was looking at ways to use wireless electricity. So I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that.
Absolutely. Yeah, as David mentioned, this sounds almost similar to what you were referring to there. So.
Yeah, because the magnetic field, you put two magnets together, and they'll either, come close, or they will try to push each other apart. So you can't really put them together. But if you can interact in the field between those two magnets, you would have something. And I think that's and like I said, levitation is very, very much something that we like to say it doesn't exist, but yeah, in 2,500. So yeah, I was close. It was about 2,500. So yeah, Cleopatra's closer to us than we are to the pyramids. So, and
Right.
a lot of some folks say that Shaddad bin Ad, who is a central figure in Islam and pre-Islam, built the Great Pyramid of Giza when he knew the flood was coming to house his treasures. Now, the King Shaddad bin Ad was the supposed ruler of a city called Iram, of the pillars located in either Yemen, Oman, or Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia sits kind of like this block here, and then Yemen and Oman sit right underneath it. And then you have the empty quarter, which is this vast desert. Well, it is said that Iram of the pillars was destroyed due to God's wrath, much like Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed because there was no righteous man in this area. The difference being that in Iram, these people were giants, and the king himself was also a giant. And then Shaddad bin Ad has been talked about having these vast treasure houses stored everywhere, and his height was relatively tall. I know he was probably like they're guessing roughly around 20 to 30 feet, and so all these other folks themselves, they were 15, 20 feet as well. So you have a whole city of giants, and that's not even getting into the Nabateans, who were Petra is the best way I can describe the Nabateans. If you've ever seen Petra, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when they go into that big ancient building at the end of the movie, or they come out of it, that's Petra. That's what the Nabateans had. Well, the Nabateans were from the same tribe, the tribe of Ad, that that Shaddad bin Ad comes from. So the tribe of Ad, half of them went to Jordan, and the other half went down into Saudi Arabia. So, or the area of Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Oman. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that the U.S. government would try to do something like that.
Absolutely.
I've heard bits and pieces of Oregon Energy, but I'll have to read up on it because I'm not familiar as I once was with it.
Absolutely. And hold any thoughts or anything you got at the moment. One thing I want to do real quick. For those who are new and just jumping on, we're talking Giants tonight with Robert Solomon. And real quick, I just want to, for those who are new on here, didn't catch the beginning intro, just one thing I want to throw out there, just sit tight. All right. So, yeah, we're here with Robert Solomon. This is a great discussion we're having tonight. And for everybody on the live chat that's been throwing out your comments, questions, and your interaction between each other, you guys have been amazing tonight. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, yes, sir. Absolutely. If you are new to viewing this channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you click that little bell icon. That way, every time we go live, or if I have a new field video that's posted, you'll get that notification. So yeah, feel free to subscribe. It's much appreciated. If you want to support the channel, right down there at the bottom of the chat section to the right, feel free to hit that super chat. And that would be very much appreciated. There's no obligation, but it would be very much appreciated. So, we're going to kind of switch gears just a little bit here, and we'll continue to talk about Giants because, I'm sure there'll be people wanting to throw more stuff out there in the chat.
By all means.
Yeah, so one of the things I wanted to kind of touch base on, again, this is kind of switching gears big time from what we were doing.
It's all right.
And OCIR, thank you very much. That's awesome. Yes, thank you, David. Hit that like button, too. So one thing I learned about you, you have some sightings, more
Yes, sir.
specifically a UFO sighting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Um, yeah, you want to talk about that? Like
Yeah.
where, when,
Yeah.
and what led up to that?
So this was like the summer of 2020, about summer of 2020. It was probably, I'm looking at maybe like June, July. Back when everything was locked down, everybody was home, you couldn't go nowhere. And I was sitting
Oh,
in my
yes.
backyard on it's basically a porch swing, but it's you don't need a porch for it. It's got the frame and everything else. That's neither here nor there. But I remember just looking up at the sky, and I remember seeing a Silvercraft. It looked like if any of you have ever seen Flight of the Navigator, uh,
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
there's very few people that like they're like what,
Yeah, it's an
you
old
know,
movie, but
I love it. I love it. It's one of my
yeah,
favorites. And
yeah.
so it was the craft itself looks like a sunflower seed is the best way I can describe it. And it looked like a sunflower seed. And I remember watching it and I was like, oh, okay, what is this? And I remember watching it go from so like this index here to this index here. And it was in a span of like a couple seconds. Well, that space in the sky is going to be a lot farther than what
Right.
I'm showing you guys now. So I was like, maybe, the cloud cover or something like that, right? I saw the same thing 2 weeks later. Same
Oh,
thing,
wow.
same exact thing. 2 weeks later, do the same thing. So that's when I was like, oh, this got to be something else, This has got to be
Wow.
something else. Yeah. Yep.
Now, when this was observed, were you at home or?
Yeah, it was during the day too.
Oh,
It was in broad daylight. It was just me. I was just sitting outside having a look up in the sky, and like I said, I saw it twice. I saw it 2 weeks later. So
wow.
2 weeks later, doing the same thing. Doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because
Um,
for those who do or don't understand, like you were talking about how close it looked, apparent,
yeah,
between space and distance, things are smaller, bigger.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like I'm doing it like, my index is from here to here, but that could be, miles and miles apart. I would have to have a scientist come in and tell me how far that would be. But it was it was different. It was different. But like I said,
Interesting.
everybody was home at that time. Everybody was doing, couldn't go nowhere. And so I just remember looking up and seeing that and I'm like, this is different. Yeah, I saw it twice.
Yeah, that's kind of like viewing an object on, through a binoculars or telescope or whatever, well, not, I shouldn't say telescope or not even a binocular, but yeah, I mean, for example, I got a new thermal Flur. This thing is, I will say it's
Oh, nice.
badass. I don't have my phone hooked up to it. Yeah, you connect it to your phone and with an app. It's a new X infrared thermal Flur. It's it's called the T2 Pro, and I only played around with it for a few minutes outside. And I got out in the street and I was viewing it. And up where the traffic light is, a good quarter mile up the road, I had a solid. And I'm only bringing this up because of the distance,
Right, right.
but the guy walking down the street looked like. I mean, of course, you could see him clear as day, fully lit up in heat, over a quarter mile away on this new thing. But yeah, even on the screen, he looked like a little bug.
Still,
But it was
though.
awesome. So.
Still.
Jerry was asking what state, and that was Ohio, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm from Ohio. Sasquatch secrets. I have not seen a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. I've never been in the vicinity to see one. I have been asked by a couple people to come out with them, and I'm looking to that. If any of you would like to take me out, I would love to. I would love to see something like that because Bigfoot to me is a very strange topic of conversation because a lot of people with the lean toward the more scientific humanoid aspect of it's an ancestor of some form, or there's other folks that believe it is more of an interdimensional type of being. And so I have no opinion on either because I'm not well versed in Bigfoot. I know bits and pieces enough to get me by maybe in a conversation, but I would definitely love to
Right.
see one. And yeah, WV is like that.
Very strange in West Virginia.
I've seen some things out there myself, but we have to remember there's tons of military bases. We have to
Oh
remember too
yeah.
that the Native Americans, they wouldn't go through certain parts of West Virginia because they believed that it was that their ancestors fought giants, to bring giants back into the conversation, that they fought giants. And so they killed the giants, but the giants cursed the land and them. And so they would hunt and they would keep it going because they would never stay there. But yeah, I love West Virginia, one of my favorite places.
Yeah, I've actually gotten some very good reports out of West Virginia.
Mhm.
I don't focus on too much of the weird stuff, although I hear and I'm told and shared stuff. But well, I'm living in Pennsylvania here, and I tell you what, since I started investigating, my girlfriend Julie, she's been showing me around, and I've been learning a lot through her. And I mean, I've always heard of a lot of Bigfoot activity up here and other strange occurrences.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you, I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much tonight, but I've shared a few times that I've seen some things I never thought I would see before, some things I can't explain, like strange flashing lights
Yeah.
in the woods,
Right. Right.
which it's very intriguing and it's kind of got me excited. But I have a lot more investigating to do. Me and Julie, we got plans coming up, before long. Wait, some of the things we're waiting on the weather breaks and you get a little bit better
Good luck with
conditions.
that. Good luck with that.
Absolutely.
And it's funny that OCIR says Ohio. Are you sure that wasn't the locals? Because we like to howl a lot because there ain't really much to do. But
Oh
drink and
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
howl.
Okay. I'm trying to keep up with the comments
No, you're
here. They
fine.
keep flooding because I wasn't looking at them all directly, but um,
Oh yeah,
so
Mothman is hilarious. I love the Mothman. One of my favorite stories.
let's see what else we got here.
Yeah,
Seven
there's
possible.
I'm not real knowledgeable into Bigfoot, but yeah, there are tons of different species of Bigfoot. There's the skunk ape, there's the what they call the abominable snowman, there's
Oh
the
yeah.
bigger ones. Yeah, there's a plethora of Bigfoots, and I don't even know about Bigfoot all like that, but I've heard a lot of different folks talk of Bigfoot, and they'll be like, well, this is the skunk ape and he's aggressive, but then there's these Bigfoots out in the Pacific Northwest and they're not as aggressive as this Bigfoot is, and then you have this, that, and the other. It's a very interesting conversation. So yeah, it's very fascinating, the different types. Oh yeah, Salt Fork. I was in Salt Fork right before the pandemic, so that'd have been like 2019 in October for Creature Weekend. And that was they don't do that anymore, but I met Bob Gimlin and got my picture taken with him. Very, very
Okay.
interesting. Um,
Sweet.
I got a little neighbor there. Awesome. What do I think Bigfoot is? Oh no. See, now you got me trapped because everybody in the Bigfoot community is going to be like, this guy, he's talking about Bigfoot. Oh, that's tough.
There's no wrong, as far as I'm concerned. There's no wrong answer. I mean,
No. And we're all I think what I personally think the Bigfoot is it's a relic, or I shouldn't say a relic. It is something from, like I had said previous and prior, a pre-industrialization, sort of like a fey folk thing, that they were kind of everywhere. They were all around. The Native Americans talk of fighting wars with the white man and the Bigfoot being on their side, fighting
right.
alongside of them. So I think that they are um, the basic remnants of the world before mankind got involved heavily, before mankind polluted, before we destroyed rivers, dams, or we dammed up things, we destroyed whole, forest, deforestation, all that. I think they existed before that. I think that they have their own language, because I have, what is his name? Ron Moorhead did
Hmm.
a little documentary, and my friend of mine, Bill Lancaster, put out these 3 documentaries. Native Bigfoot, I think, is the one I'm talking about, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it talks about Ron Moorhead kind of got like this. They call it samurai chatter, or chatter, as it
Right.
were, and a lot of that reminds me of an Asian-esque language. And as a person who's taken some Japanese, it has very striking similarities in pronunciation, the enunciation of certain words, things like that. I think personally, the Bigfoot isn't this like as people would say, this big dumb ape type creature. I think it's highly intelligent. If you can avoid mankind as invasive as we are, and we are very invasive, we're very we're not going to take no for an answer, so to speak. I think that
Right.
they're very intelligent. I just think they're from an era that doesn't exist. I think that at one time they may have had whole civilizations. I think that once mankind comes in and we remove everything around and we stake claim into what is ours, right? I think that that's when
Right.
we push everything aside. So for me, Bigfoot is a mix of kind of like an old world and a little bit of the supernatural. And I say the supernatural because Jamie and Jenny King, they talk about going out into Shenango Forest, and they had saw like this teepee shaped building. I'm going to say building. It's shaped like a teepee, like a floor structure. And Jamie said he put his cell phone in there and got full bars and took it out and didn't have that. So that kind of makes me wonder, is it an interdimensional thing? Can they, go through fabric tears? I don't know. Like I said, I love to hypothesize, and I'm sure there's a lot of folks that that would say, "Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm this, that, and I'm an expert." Listen, I'm just giving my hypothesis. I don't know as much as the next man.
Well, let me throw this out at you because it reminded me of something here. How you brought up and how a lot of people refer to hearing this language and describing it as a samurai chatter. Well, let's talk about Native Americans for example. For those who've actually, I don't know if there's any solid bearing or truth behind this, which DNA would say otherwise that there is, but according to a lot of Native Americans, there's actually what they call or refer to Europe Asian, where again there's a belief where a lot of Native Americans that were native here before, we all came here in the beginning, that originally they originated from somewhere else. And I'm not saying all of them, but according to a lot of DNAs with a lot of Native Americans, that there is Europe Asian, in the DNA. So, and thinking about you got Europe and Asia. So what if different parts of Asia where, that language developed from something like that,
Yes.
But,
I think too, what people don't really understand is that, a lot of people say, well, and I think a lot of people are centralized with Bigfoot in the United States, but you have, like I said, the Yeti, the abominable snowman. You have all of these Bigfoot-esque creatures that exist in whole other countries, China, Tibet, Brazil, South America, the whole of South America, of reported creatures. And that's not even getting into the Amazon and what is essentially in the Amazon. That's not getting into what ancient folklore has and says about these giant men. And then, things like Enkidu. Enkidu is very similar, for those that have read the Epic of Gilgamesh, a wild man, and very similar to the stories of Bigfoot. And I agree, OCIR. Mainstream science will and what I think a lot of this too with mainstream science especially is they will throw everything at you to make it seem like a hoax because they don't want that truth getting out there. They don't want the facts coming out, because if the facts are known, like we said previous and prior, it disrupts the natural order. Oh, and this is a fantastic verse here. And there were giants on the earth in those days, and also after that. There could be a purpose castles were built to keep giants out, including Mastodon and other Job 40 behemoth. Lo, now his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. Now let's take a look at that for a second here, and let's say, let's go on and say, what about these? What about the chimera? What about the minotaur? What about these other creatures that are talked about in other religions and beliefs?
Greek mythology, yeah.
Yes, and to go back to the eugenics point we made earlier, what if these things are genetic mutations? What if these things are genetic abnormalities? A sort of splicing of DNA. At the time, the minotaur was half bull, half man. So what if these are all experimentations done by folks to see what they could create? I mean, we do that now. they did something with a monkey recently, and I forget what they had done with it, but they were able to like put an extra thing of DNA in it. Now it can do this, that, and the
Yeah.
third. So it's like
I
something
believe
like
I heard
that,
of
you
that.
know?
Yeah.
Have I ever seen a Bigfoot? No, I have not. I've only seen something from the spirit world. I saw a black orb once, and Leah can attest to that. That I saw that, and a UFO, and I saw a panther-like cryptid cross the road when I was driving home from lifting. I remember coming back and I saw this creature. It wasn't a dog because a canine moves different than a feline does. A feline is more graceful in its movements, as where a canine is more rigid in the way it walks. But this thing was different. I had never seen nothing like it. I haven't seen anything like it since. And I watched a few documentaries to kind of see, okay, was it a panther? Was it a mountain lion? Was it, this, that, and the third? And I haven't seen anything moved like it yet. And this was a big animal. It was big. It was big.
Yeah, it's well, talking about mountain lions. I mean, I know here on the East Coast and various surrounding states along the Appalachian, there's eyewitnesses left and right for years, but your authorities will deny that they exist here.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I'm a witness to seeing a black one in Virginia in the George Washington National Forest. And, I mean, I've had people respond to my blogs about mountain lions in the surrounding counties where I lived in Virginia. Even up here in Pennsylvania, I'm learning that there's a lot of sightings up here. So of course, your game commissioner will tell you, no, we don't have them here. They don't exist. But hey, well, they're basically calling everybody liars. So
I had Linda Godfrey, God rest her soul, very amazing.
Yes, woman. I remember. Yeah.
She talks of seeing of there being Black Panthers in Wisconsin. Related and connected, including UFOs. The high frequency of UFOs visiting Earth makes no sense unless there is some connection. So, what I like to akin all of these UFO sightings, because if we go back in history, there's still UFO sightings, and I talked about this in my last presentation on UFOs and aliens at Butler County, or not Butler County, I'm sorry, at Les Odell. Les Odell had his WV case event, and I did a new presentation on aliens and UFOs and things like that. And what I notice is, as soon as we started nuclear testing, Bikini Atoll, New Mexico, there was a rise in the sighting of UFOs and unidentified flying objects, which is the same thing, but like different crafts. And then as we keep moving on in the nuclear age era, the sightings increase and increase and increase. And I think there's something to that. I think whatever was watching us sees us like, whoa, okay, this guy's got, they've developed something that can basically wipe out the entire planet. All they got to do is push the button and everybody's done for it. It's a wrap. And so I think that these UFOs, it has to be something along that line. Once we hit that button, once that nuclear bomb was first detonated, it sent out a signal of some form or fashion. It did something. It created an interdimensional rip or tear, and boom, now we're seeing more aliens than ever before. And then that's not even getting into the men in black that are also involved in a lot of these things.
Right. Yeah, as far as a UFO, I don't know if I could say I've seen one or not. I mean, I've seen a few strange things in the sky. Well, several years ago, I recall seeing something while standing in my yard looking off over towards the mountain. I don't know. I seen some weird object going side to side, then it goes up and down. That came back up almost in a T formation. I thought that was very odd and strange. But in the location where me and Julie have been investigating, where I've seen some strange flashing lights in the woods. There was one particular night we were there. We've been there on several occasions, and there was one particular night I remember the sky was very active. The airplanes, all kinds of aircrafts late at night. But there was one thing I kept paying attention to. Now some say this might be a star, but it didn't. It was different. I would keep seeing this flash of light way up there in one spot, and then it only happened a few times. And then that flashlight after a few flashes, it's just off. And then I thought it was kind of odd, I was like, okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But definitely some strange stuff. So,
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
For sure. One more thing I want to cover. I wanted to get to, because I don't know. this kind of does and doesn't tie into UFOs and everything else, but
Yeah, no worries.
the whole paranormal thing. But you have seen or witnessed what we would call orbs,
Yes, sir.
one
Yes, sir.
orb. Yeah, you want to tell us about that?
So I was at the Elk Hostel down in West Virginia in Sutton, which is the Braxton County, and I was there with my co-host Spider, aka Craig Houston, and he does the show with me on Friday nights. And I was with Leah, Wes, Chloe, a bunch of people down there that own the place. And I remember we were upstairs. Les Odell was there, so he can attest to this as well. And we were all seeing some crazy stuff. He brought his spirit box, and it was tuning into different stations. It's lickety split. And I remember hearing classical music playing, like legit old school piano, not radio station. It was weird. It was this, I couldn't, it was barely audible. And then I remember looking over, and there's a pool table on the third floor. And I remember seeing a black mass. It was probably about the size of a basketball, about, a men's basketball, which is 29.5. And I remember watching it go from here, and it started shifting over, and it went to this pole, and then it was gone. And I knew it was a mass because I couldn't see through it, but I could see around it. I could see everything around it. And this was a very dark room, save for some candles. And then I got a feeling, and I haven't gotten the feeling since or before that. And I saw it plain as day. Like I literally saw this mass move from one place to the other. And like I said, I couldn't see through it. That's how I knew. I was like, okay, this is different. I couldn't see through it, but I saw everything around it. And Leah, she saw something, the 5. Yeah. There was, we asked the spirit box, how many people were in the room? And it said 5. There was 5 of us in that room. It said 5.
Wow.
Leah saw a ghost or an entity pop up behind Les Odell. So yeah, we've seen quite a bit of things. That was I have seen maybe like 1 or 2 things in my life, because I'm a very nice skeptical person. I want to get out of the way what it could be first. If a door is slamming, okay, is the door sitting on an angle to where if you don't prop something up in front of it, it's going to close automatically, right?
Right.
I want to get that out of the way first, and then we can break down what it is after that. What type of feeling did I get? It was a very it wasn't a dread feeling. I've only had that once, the dread feeling. That was something menacing. I was in Mansfield Reformatory doing a night tour, and I was in the chapel, which is upstairs, and that was a very goosebumps, hair standing up. But prisons are notorious for the energy that sits there because of all the crazy things that have happened. This time though, it was just it was a very how do I put this? Time stopped, and I could just, for the moment, feel a weird sense of heightened. My senses were heightened. That's about as much as I can say. That I.
Oh yeah.
For rambling on.
Absolutely, that's interesting. I just thrown these couple of there was a couple more last minute talks about the mountain lions. Yeah, he said I've seen mountain lion tracks in Ontario. I have no doubt they are all over the eastern U.S. I think the DNR is covering them all up, not to scare people. Yeah, I believe that is. I believe there's a lot to do with the scare factor, the fear factor, how you want to put it. A lot of it has to do with the economy, with people. Yeah, the fear factor versus the leading into the economy, it could have a major effect on that.
I need to go get some pelts and do some trading.
Yeah, right. Melissa, yeah. Now, with this statement that she says right here, the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries swears we do not have mountain lions. They say no. They say any sightings are actually bobcats, and she calls BS.
Yeah,
well, there is an article, and my mother sent it to me, and I shared it on Facebook at one time. Yeah, it comes back from the late 1970s, and then there's part of you read into, I believe it goes into the early 80s. But where the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries from Virginia actually admitted back then that we do have a population of them here, but now they're denying it. So,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
government officials love to walk back things, so that's nothing. It's nothing new. I'll say that much.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Tell you what, we're coming to a close here. But one of the things I like to do with our guests is give you the last word. If there's anything you want to throw out there and share to the public, it can be anything you want to know, promote. The floor is yours, Robert.
First of all, Daniel, I want to thank you for having me on. It was a blessing, and I very much appreciate you. You are an awesome friend. I always enjoy our talks when we do meet in person. So first and foremost, thank you for those out there that came from my side of the tracks. Please subscribe to his channel. It is legit. I
Thank
tomorrow
you.
night we will be talking to Bill Rigby. So he twisted my arm and basically said, if you don't have me on, I'm going to come and get you. You know, Bill, that's what he does. He terrorizes you until he gets his way. No, I love Bill. Bill's a good guy. I was on his show last week. So we'll be having him tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at This Uncanny Earth. You can tap that into YouTube. And please subscribe to the channel. We are on there every Friday. I appreciate it. Thank you. Enjoy the journey. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my beautiful Julie right there. So she's
Nice.
in the other
Hello,
room.
Julie. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
This Uncanny Earth. You can check us out over on YouTube. Thank you, David. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so very much. Please, by all means, subscribe to This Uncanny Earth. We talk about everything from haunted locations, ancient mythology. We have guests. Daniel, matter of fact, is going to be our guest for next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So definitely drop on by. Let me see if it will let me put a link here. I can throw a link here, I believe.
Okay. Do you have access to the live chat? Or
Yeah, I do.
okay, yeah. If you want to put a link in, that'd be great. And then yeah.
Okay.
I know sometimes when I put links in the live chat, it acts stupid sometimes for me.
No, it's fine. Yeah, let me put it up here. And by all means, please subscribe. We've been doing this since 2018. We were with a network at first, but it didn't work out for us very well over at that network. And I won't say anything bad about the people over there because they're not here to defend themselves. We just amicably parted ways. I will say that much. Here is our link. There you go.
There it is.
Feel free to subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. We talk about everything. If you would like to be a guest or you have a sighting or you've seen something, by all means, come on the show. Come hang out. We would love to have you guys. You can find me on Facebook under Robert Solomon. You can also find our Facebook group, This Uncanny Earth Official, where we discuss different ideas, thoughts, and concepts. I enjoy having conversations with people. I love conversing and talking about all things paranormal, even stuff that I'm not well versed in. I'm not well versed in Bigfoot, but I like to hear people talk about it. I like to hear people talk about, these different plaster casts that they've made of these giant footprints in mud. And I think you have posted a couple yourself on your stuff. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. I love seeing people passionate about something that is almost otherworldly, because when I was a kid, these people didn't exist. And if they did, it was in very closed channels, very secluded areas. Growing up, we couldn't talk about seeing ghosts or seeing spirits or entities because you'd be labeled as a crazy person. You were labeled as nuts. But my mother, she lived in kind of what would be known as a haunted house. There was doors slamming all the time, people running up and down stairs, and it would be just her. My grandmother saw a UFO when she was 9 years old land off in a field. So I love it. I'm from the area in West Virginia where they saw the Flatwoods monster. I'm related to a couple people that saw. Yes, yeah. I'm related to a couple people that actually saw the Flatwoods monster. They're part of my family. So yeah,
that is a very cool little museum. I attended the Bigfoot festival there the last 2 years, and I'll be there again this year. And Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
very great museum. I love
Oh
it.
yeah,
Very
Andrew
informative.
Smith. Andrew Smith is amazing. Andrew Smith is such a good guy. We've had him on the show before too. I actually did a live interview with him last year. I think in April or May. It was one of those 2 months. So yes, please check
Nice.
out the channel. Feel free to email me with anything you have at thisuncanniearth@gmail.com. If you have any sightings, articles relating to giants, Bigfoot, ghost spirits, anything, send it to me. If you have anything that I have not read, I love to read, as you can tell by the copious amount of books that sit behind me. I enjoy reading, I enjoy learning, and I enjoy conversation. And I've enjoyed the conversation with you today, Daniel. Thank you so very much, my friend. You are an awesome person, and I hope I would love to do this again at some point.
Excellent, excellent, and thank you so much for being here. And
Yes, sir.
I do want to address one comment. I believe it was asked, when do I normally go live? Normally, my live nights are usually on Fridays, but my schedule on podcasts are a little off right now. I've been busy with with various things, and then I get invited to come on other podcasts as a guest, and so some of them are falling on Fridays. So, so that's a part of it. And so, yeah, I mean, as long as you're subscribed, I try to give at least, anywhere from 2 day minimum up to at least a week notice. I usually advertise or promote the podcast on Facebook. I'll even put it in my community section on the YouTube channel. And so, yeah, I mean, as long as you're subscribed, if you follow me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook as well as Daniel Benoit, ECBRO. I'm not hard to find, so, but yeah.
Also, I want to say real quick.
Yes, absolutely.
If I believe that, as a community, we should all be working together. I don't believe in hoarding knowledge. I don't believe in hiding things from our fellow researchers. If there's something that I have that I can share with you folks out there, I'm going to do that, because I believe that knowledge should be freely given. Saying, I do want to say that, like, if you're writing books, stuff like that, let me know. Let me know if you're writing a book. I'd love to have you on. We'll talk about your book. We'll discuss your book. I want to promote our community because I believe that together we can all rise together. If we're all in this thing together, we can all rise together, and we're a lot harder to stop as a group than as one person. So once again, Daniel, thank you, man. Love you. This was a great chat, a great time, and I appreciate and respect you 1,000%.
Absolutely. And again, everyone, if you're new to this channel, if you have not done so, please subscribe and feel free to hit that super chat. And if you want to support the channel, and until next time, guys, this has been a great night. Thank you guys for everyone who tuned in and participated. If you missed this, if you want to share this around later, this podcast, like every other, will be available on your favorite podcast radio platform, Spotify, and wherever else. We usually upload the audio version to our online radio program as well. So feel free to spread the word, subscribe, and keep it squatchy, my friends. Until next time, we're out.